Hi everyone, welcome to our October edition of BarcelonaJS. We are here thanks to two of our sponsors, Adevinta and Onna. And first, we would like to have somebody from Adevinta giving a presentation of the company that made this meetup possible. So, Helena.
Oh, and nice to meet you virtually. My name is Elena, and I am working as a tech recruiter in Adevinta, Spain. For the ones who doesn't know who we are, Adevinta is like an international company. We have different marketplaces in more than 15 countries, and we have like more than 4,000 employees. So as you can see, we are like a digital global player. We are one of the biggest marketplaces specialists in Europe. But also at the same time, we are like still a family of local brands. Maybe you know someone like Leboncoin, Yapo, or Subito. Here in Spain, we are like a little Adevinta. We are based in Barcelona, there our headquarters, and we like to help people to find what they need in key moments of their lives through our brands that are really known here in Spain. Some of them are like Fotocasa, Habitaclia, Infojobs, cochesandmotos.net, and Milanuncios. So we reach like together like 18 million active users each month. So hope like you enjoy the meetup. If you have any doubt about who we are or to know more information, you can contact me directly. Also, just you to know, we're looking for new colleagues for our team in Milanuncios team, and we're looking for a front-end. You can see in the chat the offer, and if you are interested, you can check it. So enjoy.
Cool. Thank you, Helena. And now our next sponsor and the speaker. Actually, both speakers tonight are coming from Onna, and I'm going to introduce first Eric Bréhault. I hope I pronounced that correctly. If not, pardon my French. He will be talking about traversing, an alternative to routing. So, Eric.
Yeah, thank you, Tudor. So yes, traversing, an alternative to routing is what I'm going to be talking about today. First, I will introduce briefly my company. So the company name is Onna. It's a startup based in Barcelona and New York City, but also Raleigh in North Carolina, San Francisco, London, and Toulouse. What we do is what we name KIP, a knowledge integration platform. So what it is about, basically, everybody nowadays is using digital applications, and digital applications are very good to store information, but nobody can decide to use only one. Like you cannot decide to use only emails, for example, or only, I don't know, G Drive. You will always end up using many of them. So the result is the knowledge is totally fragmented. So what Onna does, it brings together all the fragmented knowledge, and it allows to search and explore it as far as you want. So we work for world's leading companies like Facebook or Slack or Electronic Arts, Fitbit, these kind of big companies. And at the moment, we are growing super fast. So consequently, we are hiring a lot in all different offices, so both in Europe and America. So that's who we are, basically. Now, a word about me. My name is Eric Bréhault, and it was perfectly pronounced by Tudor. Thank you, Tudor. I'm an open source contributor for quite a while now. I think I started open source in 2006. I used to be a Python developer at the time, but now I'm a front-end developer, and I'm a team leader at Onna. I'm the team leader of the application team, basically in charge of all the front-end development. So let's get into our topic, traversing. What is traversing exactly? Well, it's actually the most common thing you can imagine. Traversing is what happened when you click on a link on a web page. So you have click here, you click here. Basically, you're going to traverse to this page, which was linked to this anchor. So that's something billions of people are experiencing basically every day. So that's the most common thing you can imagine. And how does that work? It works over two very simple principles, which are the basic principle of web: URLs and hypermedia. So I will not define those two terms, but basically, URL is the address of any page, and hypermedia is what HTML is. It's basically a page of content containing links to other pages. That's basically what it is, right? And with those two concepts, we make the web traversable. You can navigate from one page to another through URLs. That's basically what you do, and everybody knows about that. But what about web apps? So web apps are obviously applications which are built on top of web technology. And web is all about traversing since its very beginning. And quite amazingly, web apps are never using traversing as a strategy. They are all about routing. And I'm going to illustrate that with some stupid paperclips I did. Imagine you have a home page somewhere where you have a link to a product page, and it would have been implemented using routing. So you have somewhere on your code a link which is water link to /product/123. Okay, you start from there. What's going to happen is your routing system, whatever technology you're going to use, it could be React, it could be Angular or Vue.js, your routing system knows that everything which is following the pattern /product/ whatever should be parsed and extract the second part of it as being the product ID. And then it will call the, let's say, the product view component, for example, to render this product. So when you instantiate this component, it will probably receive the 123 as an ID and make some action to get the corresponding information. So let's imagine you're using something like Redux. It will dispatch an action like load product 123. Okay, fair enough. Now, you will have somewhere something listening to this dispatch that will take the requested ID 123 and build the corresponding backend endpoint calling, like you will call /product/123. And this HTTP request will end up on a server on the backend somewhere, and the routing system of the server knows that everything which is based on /routing/ whatever should be parsed, and you extract the second part, which is the ID, and then you will call something like a product view implemented in Java or Python or whatever. Okay, so now you get to the data layer, where you will end up doing something like select 123 from such table, and you get the content. So now you have the content, you have to serialize it into JSON, and you just deliver that as an output, ID 123, and maybe some other attributes like related to such as a product. So the product will be referenced as /product/456 or whatever. So the front-end application is going to receive this payload. And in this payload, it gets these attributes, related product, with an ID. So it will, the reducer will put that somewhere in the store. And when you render your product that you initially called, you might want to display the related product. So you will generate somewhere a link to this related product by producing this string /product/456 to put it into a router link. And then you can route again and again and again. And well, what I say when I see that, it's kind of messy. To me, it's super messy. We have been spending our time doing path, producing a path, then parsing this path, extracting the IDs, and putting it again in this very same path, and again and again and again, all over the full cycle from front end to back end and back to front end. So if we just take a step back and think about how it was going in the 90s. So maybe some of you were not already developing at the time. Just as a side note, I created my first website. At the time, there were less than 500 websites in the world. So quite early in the 90s. And at the time, it was actually very simple. If you have a page like /product/123, you get there, you have this HTML content, and if you decide on your server that it should be classified on some way, like you would like this 123 product to be into a subfolder named bikes or cars or houses, whatever, you just create the subfolders and you move your HTML file there, and you get /product/bike/123, which is perfectly valid link, and wherever you use that link, it's going to work immediately. So that's something totally simple. You can reorganize your information. You can decide on the path of any content, any resource, and it just works without any other effort. So what's wrong with us with front-end nowadays? Well, I think the original problem, the original sin of routing is not that we have been spending, in this stupid example I show with Paperclip, we spend our time parsing strings, extracting an ID, and then regenerating the same string to get the path. That's okay. I mean, parsing and concatenating the same string is not a problem. Of course, it's not. So that's not my point. My point is that at any step of the process we've been describing about routing, we had to know what type of resource we were processing. So we have to know something is a product, and we get that because of the pattern of the path. So we instantiate the proper product component. And if it was, let's say, a user profile that would have been identifying by, because it starts with /user/an ID, then we would have picked another component. And we had to know that in advance. We need to know that actually at build time. At the time you are generating your web app, you have to know everything about the way your information is structured into your website. So this is a problem. The knowledge, you need to know in advance, and knowledge is, well, as we all know, knowledge is the original sin. If we come back to this example I showed earlier, click here. When you have a page like this on a web page, when you click here, at the time you click, you have no idea where you will get. You have no idea what's going to be the next page. Maybe it's an HTML page. Maybe it's a PDF file. Maybe it's a video stream. It could be whatever, okay? We know that. As web users, we know anything can happen. And probably when you have just clicked here with an empty page, you won't click here because you will be a bit suspicious. But what's important here is your browser, your web browser, does not know either what's going to happen when we're going to click here. It will make the call, and it will get a resource. And depending on what kind of resource it is, what is the content type of the resource, maybe it's PDF, maybe it's HTML, it will render it accordingly. Only once it gets the result from the backend, okay? Not before. So imagine your browser had to know in advance for each web page in the world, where are the pages and where are the files? Like you enter a website and all the pages are under /pages and all the files are under /files. And your browser has to know that in advance for any website in the world. That would be totally impossible, obviously. And that's where we miss something with the way we are creating web apps at the moment using routing only. Routing is basically working like databases. It's inspired by databases. Routing is like having some classification for stuff, like you have a table or you have a path, and under this path, under this table, you're going to get all the resources of this kind. Well, the web is not working as a database. The web is like a gigantic library. Basically, web is like, a chocolate box. You never know what you're going to get. And this SQL vision we inject into web applications through the routing approach, to me, is very sad and very depressing. I don't like that. I want web to be totally free and wild. So how should we build web apps in a way to keep them free and wild? Well, what if we start considering our apps just like browsers, basically applications which are able to render content and navigate from one content to another. JSON, so JSON content you receive from a backend application, is actually hypermedia. It's not HTML, of course it's not, but it's hypermedia. So JSON can be considered as content, and a JSON content might contain some references to other JSON content, to other endpoint call. So that's basically what we could call links. So any link can be anything, and you should have to structure your application in a way that it can process the link without knowing in advance what it is, but just reacting to what it is. So let's go for a simple demo. Sorry, give me a sec. It's a very, very simple demo, quite stupid actually. Here is an application which is able to browse a GitHub repository. So you go to your GitHub repository, and if it's a folder, you get the content of the file. You get the file list, sorry. And if it's a file, you just see it, okay? That's all what it does. So it's super stupid. And obviously, I don't know, I cannot forecast the structure of a Git repository or the GitHub repository. So when I call the GitHub API, I need to be totally neutral about the way the information has been structured. So my application is not implying that any folder should be under /folder or should be under /file or whatever. If you can see, I'm not sure you can see it, but anyway, it's no big deal. Here, what I am using as a location, as a path, is basically the corresponding path of the given file or folder. And that's what I am using at my application level to route, or basically to navigate and render the corresponding content. So let's go back to my slides. You could implement this. Oh, I lost my notes. Give me a sec, I'm sorry. You could implement this by doing a very stupid route. Star goes to default view. Of course, we could do that. And it would work, but, sorry, a bit too fast. It would work definitely, but you would just move the complexity of all the possibilities into this default view component. So it's not a way, it's not scalable at all. Of course, if you just want to process either folder or components, that's quite easy. But if you have thousands of different types, I mean, thousands may be exaggerated, but let's say 10 or 20, then it does not work because your default view component is going to be huge ultimately. So what traversing is offering? If we go into a very simple example where you want to display your content into your web app like this. This is an article about the Star Wars Day. We would have a link like traverse to, so similar to router link or whatever attribute you can use for routing, and you give a path. So until there, no much difference compared to routing. But then what happened? Instead of trying to find a matching pattern for this path, we'll just dispatch load such path. So we dispatch that, and it actually happened to be the corresponding path for the corresponding resource on the backend. So we'll have an HTTP request to get this content. And we get a response, and the response will contain some attributes. So let's imagine we have something like a type. It could be anything. It could be a type. It could be a combination of attributes. We don't care much. We just teach the application to watch for a given information into the response to identify the type of content we are trying to render. And here, well, it's an article. Good. In our application, we have a mapping somewhere defining all the components for the known types. So article is supposed to be rendered with an article component. Or we could have other, let's say we might have a month folder. So we would render it with a folder component. And yeah, we can have alternative views, like not necessarily the default view, but maybe the edit view to edit the article. So that's something we define somewhere, just like you probably defining your route somewhere. And as we have been identified the resource as an article, we're going to instantiate the article components, and we're going to render it. So the result is we have been getting the information first, then identifying the type of information it is, and render it. What it enables, it allows us to do this kind of things. Traverse to ... It means you will go to the parent resource of the current resource. What's good about it is you don't need to know the type of the parent before you do that. The parent could be maybe an article collection, or it could be a user profile, or it could be any kind of resource. We don't need to know in advance to produce the proper route. Imagine you have something similar to do with routing. You will have to know the type of the parent in order to produce here the right route. So it should be /user or /folder or /collection or /something in order to make your routing system efficient. With traversing, as we don't need to know it, it will go instantly. It will resolve the backend resource, get it, and then analyze it. Is it a folder? Is it another article? Is it whatever it is? Well, I know how to render it. This is a component I need. And that's how it goes. So what are the key things here? First, URLs are very good identifiers. When you use routing, you spend your time passing, let's say, database-related identifiers, so unique IDs of any kind. Whereas URLs are the identifiers we use on the web since the very beginning, and they are super efficient because first, they are unique, obviously they are, and secondly, they are operable. This means you can take a part of it to get some information about a container, or you can start from there and navigate to a sibling content. They are operable, so that they are much better than just pure IDs, which means nothing. And secondly, the view mapping I've been showing, where we define that such type of content should be rendered with such component. So basically, the kind of mapping you would do at the browser level, if you say such content type goes with such rendering approach, like PDF go with such plugin, HTML with this, etc., etc. This is totally dynamic. So it's not done at build time. You can declare it whenever you want. You can override it at runtime. So let's imagine you have a view, a component which is supposed to render an article for an anonymous user. At the time the user gonna log in, for example, and you discover this user is actually the author of the article. Well, you could dynamically change the component we use for the article type, and it's gonna work. totally dynamically. You could also imagine something even better, where your base application is not able to parse any type of content, but you load dynamically a micro front-end application that would declare new components for new types, and at the time you try to traverse to those kind of content, you can render them fluently without any blockers. So that's something much more flexible than routing, and providing basically the same set of feature you get with routing, but just with more flexibility. So what we are working with and actually maintaining, because those two projects are open source, are Angular based. It could be implemented in any technology, whatever. All the things I've been explaining are not related to Angular at all. It's basically based on basic, let's say, basic concept for web application. Our implementation is Angular, so that's Angular traversal and NGX state traverser. So the first one is basically providing the machinery for routing, for traversing, sorry, and the other one is binding it to Redux in case you want to use Redux, but that's not mandatory. So those two NPM modules are available on NPM and can be used if you want to. So that was it. Thank you all. Here's some contact information in case you want to get into more detail. So my GitHub ID is Bréhault, same for Twitter, and my email is eric@onna.com. Thank you very much, and I'm here for questions, if any.
Hi. So thank you, Eric. So a round of applause from everybody's house for Eric. Remote applause. Let's see if there are any questions. So if you have any questions, please type them in the live chat of YouTube, and I will read them to Eric. Suspense. Let's wait another minute or so. Okay, everybody is shy tonight.
It's okay. It's okay.
So if you have any questions at a later time, or you want to ask them privately, you can contact Eric at the details that he shared with us. And thank you again, Eric. That being said, I'm going to welcome our second speaker for tonight. Also from France, also from Onna. Please welcome Mat. I think it's Pellerin. I'm struggling with French because in Spanish a double L is kind of like an elongated I, will be Pellerin. So try my best. The topic of the talk will be design system. Developing your own UI is not such a bad idea. I tried this myself in the past. It wasn't that much of a bad idea, but it wasn't that much of a good idea either. So I'm very curious to learn more about your take on it. So please welcome Mat.
Thank you. So yeah, you were almost there. It's Mat Pellerin, because French are weird with pronouncing, but Pellerin is good enough, don't worry. So yeah, I'm a front-end engineer working at Onna, and I will speak about design system tonight. And just for introducing a bit the subject, here a bit of context. I started working at Onna a bit more than 2.5 years ago. And at that time, we were like 2 front-end developers and 1 UX designer. I'm just speaking about the application side of it, the backend. And we were working with Angular 4 at that point and Angular Material for the UI components. And actually, the Angular Material was a big piece, and the migration from 4 to 5 was quite heavy. And it was like preventing us from migrating to Angular 5 for quite a while. And our UX designer was complaining about materials design, some choices they made at that point, and some stuff which were like materials or not, or corresponding to his vision of our product. So that's when we started the development of our own UI library. And later on, Onna grew enough to allow us building a real design system. And I thought that would be worth sharing our experience around it. So yeah, as I said, I'm Mat Pellerin. I'm also an open source contributor, and on social media like Twitter and GitHub, you can find me using the Pellerin42. And tonight we will talk a bit about like, okay, what is a design system? And as you said, Tudor, is it worth the effort? And the big thing for us, because we have a strong open source culture in Onna, is it compatible with open source? But first thing first, like, some UI component neither. So in a way, it's all that, like style guides, UI components, but it's even more. So we could define a design system as a collection of styles and UI code and components, as well as the corresponding documentation and design rules around all of them. So here I displayed like the UI, UX and design, the UI library, but also a very big part. A design system is meant to be shared, and it's meant to be easily reachable widely in the organization. Anyone in the company must know where to find it and be able to use it. As an example, you saw Eric's presentation just before mine, and you saw the beginning of mine. I guess you saw that we are using the same presentation template, right? And this template was provided by our marketing team. And the marketing team actually built the presentation template based on our design system. So that way, when you see something from Onna, a presentation, website, anything, you recognize Onna. So to be able to do that, it really needs to be like shared across the whole company. And very important, a design system is alive. You should not see it as a quick side project, because it's really not. It's a real product, and it's meant to live and evolve within the company. It may be small, and you may not have a dedicated team working full-time on it, and that's okay. But still, you should see it as it should be. It's a living organism, and you should feed it, otherwise it will die. So don't kill your design system. Okay, so as developers, we know the value of using libraries, right? We don't have to reinvent the wheel all the time, and it allows us to build things faster. So we really like to reuse some stuff like other people did. And building your own UI library might sound very scary, right? So is it worth it? Long story short, yes, but let's see why. First, you will implement your design system first as a front-end developer, first by developing a UI library, right? So once it's stable enough, and you will have the winning points of any library. you will reuse tested solutions, and you will build things faster afterwards. So it's a win. Obviously, it's once it is done, right? So to do it, you don't need to aim big at start. You can really aim small. You can implement it piece by piece, and you can do it basically alongside the project which needs it. So you can start like having only one project in all the company, starting working on the UI library alongside that project, and the time it grows, you will be able to bring more people, more projects using it. And a very big part of it is also about the communication. It's really increased the communication and the collaboration between, just for name a few, designers and front ends. We all, and by all I really mean all, like UX people, dev people, product manager, QA tester, everyone, have access to the designer's Figma file. So I'm speaking in Onna, where designers are using Figma because it's online design software. So we all have access to this designer's file. And on the implementation side of it, we did a demo site. So basically, anyone can see what is implemented, it can see what was specified. So we finally all speak the same language. When we speak about checkbox, we all speak about the same checkbox, how it looks. So I just have a very small demo, which is here because I lost the VPN connection, where it's our demo site for our design system and our UI library. And here I will just be able to display you the colors. You can recognize the colors you have on the presentation template. And on the left side, you have all the things which are documented here and implemented, obviously. So some core things, some components, and some form elements. And a very big part of it is also the consistency. Obviously, if you have a design system across the company, everything will have the same look and feel, every single product using it, obviously. So coming from the presentation, right? But also the website, your blog, if you have any, and your product like application, which are online. And finally, it's also allowing scalability. And as I said, at Onna, we have a very strong open source culture. And we strongly believe on open source because working in open source leads to follow best practices. You pay more attention to conceptual details like, okay, separation of concerns, to name only one. And about that one, you don't have to have all your design system open source. It could be like only one part, a UI library. In our case, what is generic enough, go to the library, and what is really tied to the business and should stay internal, will stay internal. And just to finish with the open source side of it, it's also bringing value by the community, which is around open source project. Even if it's a very small community, it takes only one person to just come and check out your code and see some things going wrong, or having an idea, proposing a feature, proposing a fix, and so on. So with that in mind, once we decided to implement our own UI library, we quickly moved to an open source project, to make it an open source project. And that's how Pastenaga Angular was born. So basically, Pastenaga Angular is the open source part of our UI library. It contains all generic components like buttons, form elements, pop-up system, everything. But obviously, we are not all Google, right? Google have its own design system, its material, and they are providing implementation as UI library that everyone can use. But anyone using it will just look like Google, right? And at Onna, we have our new design system, but we don't want everyone using our open source library to look like Onna. We need our brand. We need people to see our product and recognize them. So to do that, we designed Pathanaga Angular as very customizable with a default theme, but that we can overwrite on our product. And the very big thing is we had the version 1 of Pathanaga Angular when we started, like, as I said, something like 2 years ago, implementing our own UI library. But we started a version 2 almost from scratch when we started the implementation of the new design system. And we decided to really make things better. So it's fully tested and it's fully documented. And that's how we have that demo site that you can recognize. It's more or less the same look as the first one, where you have the palette, right? But it's not the same colors because it's not the same theme. Here we are talking about Pathanaga. And in ours, it's the same thing, but with the overridden to be our design system. And in here, in Pathanaga, you see the calls and some components and form elements, but only the generic one. So basically, everything which is like generic enough to be open source. Anything which is coupled to our business, like, for example, an account switcher, a tutorial tool, this kind of thing, a search filter, that is very tight for our business, so that it stays internal. So yeah, at the end, we ended up having this UI library that you can use. I think the version 2 is not yet an NPM package, but the version 1 is. And if you have any question about that big subject, feel free.
So, any questions? Well, first of all, thank you, Matt. It was an interesting talk. And if nobody has a question, I have a question of my own, because, as I said, I worked on a design system for a year almost, and we had a bit of let's call it mixed results. My question is, how did you manage to withstand product pressure? Because what happened with us in some cases, while the design system is useful and it brings a lot of value, in a lot of cases it also creates a lot of overhead, because you need to build the components, whether atoms or molecules, inside your design system, and then go to a process that you get them to the actual product. And in some cases, the PM would come, no, we need this really fast. This is just an A/B test. There's no need to go through the whole process. You do it like this. And at some point, it would just like grow branches of the same thing. So from this standpoint, it was difficult to handle. How did you convince the project managers? Like, what was your speech?
So I think I was not the one doing that speech, but that speech might be always like a matter of scalability, right? Saying, okay, we need that component to be able to do that page, for example, and we will need it to be able to do that other page also, which is done by someone else. So we don't want to create two components doing the exact same thing. And the other thing I think is we have like one thing I didn't say, but it's very important to have like one person responsible, like in charge, the owner of the design system. But the ownership then is like shared across the team, and that includes everyone. So basically, it's all about the shared ownership, and everyone should be like standing for the design system and kind of fighting for it. So I feel like in Onna we are lucky so far, because we didn't have a PM pushing too hard, trying to make things like in the bad way, just for the sake of speed. But if that were to come, there is kind of two solutions. Like, okay, we do that proof of concept real fast, real quick, and we keep it internal for now. But that means like later on we will have more work to like take that part and making good for the design system. So yeah, it's all a matter of balance and I guess negotiation with your team.
Cool, thank you. So if anybody has any other questions, by the way, why the name? What does it have a special significance?
Pasanaga, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, it has a meaning in Catalan, because the UX designer who first came with the very first kind of design for it is Catalan, and the meaning of Pasanaga is carrot. That's why in Pasanaga website is the logo. Now, why he named that like that, I don't know. I think I asked, but I don't remember what was the reason.
Cool. Well, apparently there are no other questions. So thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
And, thank you also, Eric, for here he is.
Thank you to you.
It was an interesting couple of talks. I personally enjoyed them, and I hope the BarcelonaJS community enjoyed them as well. And once the whole COVID thing is over, we hope to see you in person at one of our future editions. So
definitely, with pleasure. And thank you very much for having us. It was very nice. And I hope all two talks were interesting to the people who joined. So yeah, see you next time.
Cool. Thank you. See you. Bye, everyone.
Thank you. See you.